Josh, the U.S. has the lowest life expectancy among large, wealthy countries, and yet we outspend all of those countries in mass.
Yeah.
Massive question, but what are your thoughts on why that data exists? What is happening?
Well, I think there's a few things here. One, I think we've taken our medical system that's meant for emergency care and tried to apply that to healthcare.
Oh, so, interesting.
Yeah, that's actually the single biggest problem. So think about it. If somebody is in emergency, we want to do surgery. We may want to prescribe a medication if somebody's in emergency. But we've taken lifestyle-based conditions like type 2 diabetes, obesity, a lot of types of heart disease, high blood pressure, high cholesterol. All of those things are 100% fixable, or let's say 99% fixable with diet and lifestyle adjustments in supplements. Yeah. You can take turmeric instead of a statin drug in often cases and get better results, but all of these drugs have major side effects, and so that's one issue. And the other big thing is poor diet. For years we had what we call the SAD diet, the standard American diet, and the food pyramid, which said eat a lot of carbs. I mean, grains, bread. I mean, that was at the very, very base of the pyramid. And what we're finding now is those carbs turn into sugar. That increases people's likelihood of insulin resistance and blood sugar issues. That's a major driver of inflammation and sickness. So just even the government and what doctors recommended for years on diet was completely wrong. And then sedentary lifestyle. So many of our jobs today, in fact, I want to say 100 years ago, more than 50% of jobs were agriculturally related. Yep. And most people were very mobile and moving on a regular basis. Today, we're sitting a lot. So I mean, there are quite a few things that go into that. And if you travel to other countries, like we went on a trip to Europe last year, there's a lot more eating real food, eating fresh food. Most of our foods today, people don't realize this, are shipped in from places like Mexico and China. So the nutrient density is very low. There's a lot of different things that add into it, but those are a few.
This is an ad for BetterHelp. In a world full of noise, personal and professional growth start with clarity. But with distractions pulling us in every direction, it's hard to think clearly, let alone be our best. That is why therapy is a great tool, not just for healing, but for self-improvement. BetterHelp is 100% online, so you can invest in yourself on your schedule. And with over 30,000 licensed therapists, they'll match you with someone who helps you become the best version of you. Visit BetterHelp.com/Ken for 10% off your first month. Okay, I'm glad you brought up the food because I've got a buddy named Jan, and Jan is from Germany, and we play pickleball together every week. And we were talking the other night about, he's like, it's been a real adjustment since moving here. I had to readjust my eating habits because everything in Europe is healthy.
Yeah.
And he goes, here, I thought everything was, and it's not. And so now I have to be super selective, super picky. That begs the question, why? Why are there all the preservatives here, not in Europe? What's going on? Is this a conspiracy, or is this irresponsibility by the American government?
Well, I think there's a few things. One, every country has something that they prioritize above others. Chelsea and I we spent a few years in Puerto Rico. And one of the things I noticed there in that country and a lot of areas like South America, family is a bigger priority than here, actually. In the United States, economics, money is actually at the very, very peak of what drives our country. This is why in many places we're known as sort of being, the most successful country in the world, because money tends to be what people judge that on. But if you go to Italy today, I mean, they, rather than saying money is the biggest thing that's driving us, it's not for them. I mean, food, agriculture, actually quite a bit of, tourism is there as well. But overall, that's not the most important thing. So I would say people have sacrificed their health in order for wealth. And the government has actually been a big driver for that as well, is, hey, let's help people create better, better income, but not better health. I mean, it's really been very, very low. And then there's a lot of other things into this. I'll share one thing. Back in 1910, John Rockefeller saw the promise of making money in the pharmaceutical industry. And so there's something called the Flexner Report, where basically they created this whole strategy to discredit holistic practitioners and make sort of diet, everything from chiropractic to naturopaths to nutritionists, sort of obsolete because they saw so much money. So, I mean, there's been a whole like campaign and propaganda for a lot of years that's really been driving the pharmaceutical industry and sort of keeping the holistic health industry at bay.
Well, I believe that.
Yeah.
And it makes me angry. I'll go back to what you were talking about with what our country prioritizes. I'm really tracking with that. Is that then, can I draw from that?
Yeah, please do.
That the desire to make money is about profitability.
Yeah.
And profitability is why our food is the way it is. Is that true? In other words, is it more expensive to create food, if you will, in Europe, and thus that's why it's healthier?
It is. I mean, so what we have really focused in on are what we call monocrops, and these are crops that you can go really quick, but you need to use a lot of pesticides and herbicides because over time you deplete the soil. So it's corn, it's soy, it's wheat. So we do massive amounts of these grains, and they're also genetically modified. That's a whole nother sort of discussion, but they're very, very cheap. And then we don't replenish the soil. We only put 3 nutrients back in the soil when there's like 80 some nutrients that should be in the soil. Because of that, those plants have less and less nutrients over time. In fact, there's a study that came out not too long ago that said on average, our food has 40% less nutrients than it did 100 years ago. And some foods might have 75% less. So if you're eating an apple or tomato, I mean, I don't know if anyone's ever noticed this, but sometimes I've bitten into an apple. I'm like, this tastes like a bag of water or a tomato. It doesn't actually taste like food. Yeah. And part of that's due to the nutrient density. I mean, it's like you'd have to eat 4 apples today in terms of nutrients to equal the apple that you might have had, 100 years ago.